they estimate we probably need, yeah, some space on the second floor or some combination thereof on both floors. The basement, I think we both agree that that's probably not feasible space for what we would have to do, at least from the fire department's standpoint, what our needs are. We don't have a real storage need, and some of our space needs to have multiple exit points because there's sleeping areas in the fire stations, and you can't have, like, you can't put that in the basement.
And you don't need a defunct shooting range.
Yeah, and there's a, in the shooting range down there, there's some exit issues.
Is there an elevator in the building now?
No. And that has come up too as a potential issue they have to evaluate further is ADA requirement in that building, and then what is the space that an elevator, you lose space when you put an elevator in because you have to have a shaft that meets certain sizes, and then the equipment that goes along with that, the basement, or wherever you're going to put it. So they would need to look at that a little further. But ADA requirements would have to be met, most likely because you're doing greater than 50% remodel to a building, which is what throws that trigger over. So they would have to, in their eyes, to do anything efficient with the building or come to close efficiency, they would want to put in studded walls on the inside of the current walls to improve the insulation factor because it's fairly minimal in the building right now. So they would literally close some of the space because they'd be building a secondary wall in that building. So that is actually what he said is a lot of the construction process. Basically, you're using the brick, but then you're building a whole new wall space and insulating that wall space then too. That would take a little space too, in addition to the ADA stuff they have to deal with.
Do you think that the increase in operating costs are primarily due to HVA?
HVA size, and then they said that, at some point in remodeling, you just can't get the efficiency you get in the envelope of the building, is what his thought was. So, in that memo, I did lay out what would potentially be a timeline as far as making a assumption, just for the board's information, if you were to act tonight. There is a counter offer process that's been going back and forth, which I think has been, as part of a real estate transaction. Both boards have handled that, how real estate transactions are handled. But if we were to, let's just say, move forward with that option, the timeline laid out would be, the property is all considered a single property right now, down the library, up this way to the parking lot, so there'd have to be some surveying done to separate out the property. There would have to be, the fire department board would have to approve of any tentative plans and budget, and get that lined up. We have a space holder in our financial plan to do something, but that has not been approved spending, or it's not been a final approved project. So there's review, the village has design review, the village has plan commission, which would be able to weigh in on the splitting of the property. That would all be required, and the intention of the department would be at some point, probably in the, timeline was in the next 30 days, to have some level of open house to talk about, walk through the building, let people see the building, let people look at some of the options that have been looked at in the past, and then look at what would be conceptual type drawings that an architect has put together on a new building, or is in the process of putting those together. If we, depending where we're going, we're sort of in a holding pattern at this point as far as design, just so we're not spending money that maybe isn't going to be used. So that would be a process that probably would occur sometime after, I guess in May would be the tentative timeline, 8th to the 20th, somewhere in there. I'm trying to work within meeting schedules and other things that are going on. So again, it would go back to the plan commission. It would probably come back here for a PDD review based on the plan commission's action, design review board, then it goes back to the plan commission, and then potentially back to the village board again. All that time, we also have the fire department board weighing in because they would have to include not only the potential design features that they may want to see or have questions about, but then the budget for that process too. We also have a financing component that we need to work with the village of Whitefish Bay at this point because we are not a taxing body, so we are unable to borrow general obligation bonds, which is probably the most effective way to do this. So we have to include Whitefish Bay's process as far as borrowing, so there's some timing issues in that too at this point. They're willing to work with us to borrow on our behalf with a commitment for payback. So that is the April 13th memo in summary. I think well, I guess one other thing I'd point out is we are working on from a facility perspective, we have 5 buildings. We did an analysis of all 5 in the last 2 years. We had a estimate of cost in all 5 buildings for, I guess, what I would call major improvements. 2 of the buildings are newer, 3 are older. So 3 of the buildings, they total about $10 million worth of work that probably needs to be done to bring them up to speed. Our intention, what I have been working from a fiscal standpoint with our board, is that there's debt service that the village contributes to their portion to that expires in 2022. That is debt service that is paying off the station in Bayside and Ground Zero. That debt service expires. So the process, the financial plan for the fire department would show that our intention was to roll this borrowing. So the total between the 7 municipalities, they pay about $550,000 annually in debt service for these type of things. That if we could keep that level, so municipalities don't have a increased debt service cost, although it would be extended another 20 years, let's say. We would try to keep it at between 530 and 550 to keep that balanced with respect to the levy and other issues that you have to deal with as a village board. So that 530 to 550,000 really produces about 6.2 million of money that we could borrow. So it's short of the 10. So I am trying to basically squeeze as much as I'm trying to be very cost conscious as to how we're moving forward with some of these projects. Because long term, with the current, we don't want to, or we want to limit any additional costs we would come back to ask for. So I guess I'll just say that we are trying to be cost conscious and mindful that we are probably taking on a fair amount of work and trying to do it the most cost effective means as possible right now in order to improve the building, all 3 buildings actually. The second memo dated April 15th, there was a request for information as to the current sort of the status of the building next door. And I put together a brief, the PowerPoint coincides with that. I know some of this may be repetitive as far as the police station discussion some of you may have had several years ago. The building as it is, and I would represent from the fire department standpoint, and I believe, I don't think this is a surprise, at least for village staff, as we talk, and Rebecca is new, and we sort of talked through some of the issues as she's become oriented to what's out there in the community, is right now that building is at a point where I think making what I would call small fixes is probably a bad investment. So in other words, like the boiler, the village did a small fix to get the boiler through this heating season. We knew, I think jointly, we had this discussion, that that's not a long-term fix. So there is a fair amount of liability as far as cost in the building. Let's just say scenario A is nothing happens, just for sake of discussion. I think the long-term cost to maintain that building is significant, and it's as much or more on the village's end because you own the building right now than it is on the fire department's end. There is 18,000 square foot of space there. We're using 9,000. Your utility bills, I believe, are about the same as they were before the police department left. So, and that is a whole nother set of discussion point. So as far as a cost-effective operation right now, if I were in your shoes, I would have questions as to how you move forward and make it cost-effective. Other issues in the building that I think we would need to address are in the packet. Just for people here who are here that may have an interest. There's 5 firefighters, a minimum on duty there, 24/7. That building was built in 1927. The northern half was an addition later than that. And just for if you haven't been in the building, there's basement, first floor, second floor. The first floor is split. There's a garage in the north, garage in the south, workspace in the middle, and then it sort of fares out the back. The police department occupied the middle of the first floor, all the back of the first floor, and the basement, and then we have the second floor and sort of the garages. So since the police have left, that space is currently vacant. And so in that, until the city gets vacant, we don't have a need for more space. It's more just, lay out your stuff in a bigger spot, just sort of like a house, you have a bigger house, you can lay your stuff out. That seems like we have before. So as far as current issues, and I'm going to cover this page 1, 2, 3, 4, so that it says current facility problems in the slide. So the boiler, I think we have both village and department resolved that that's probably not, we had to go through another heating season. In fact, maybe we're starting another heating season yesterday. I'm not sure what's going on anymore. I think we're going to get a point where it's either major investment or replacement of the boiler. So that's a big cost. Air conditioning, I think, will need to be replaced soon. The heating and cooling controls, I think, have been a challenge for a long time that would need to be addressed. We have, and the police department has identified too, there's water coming in the roof somewhere. It's been minor leaks get fixed, but I think from a long-term perspective, the roof will need to be replaced no matter what happens if the building stands. Currently, the bathrooms, showers, and locker rooms are not designed for male-female employees. It's basically one gender. There's one space, and there's locks on it. So to speak, there's a female in the bathroom, no one else go in type of thing. And from a recruitment and retention perspective, that's not a real positive on my behalf when I have to go and recruit a diverse workforce. IT infrastructure, we did some recent cabling to get by, but there is no internal sort of Cat 6 cable is the latest in what you want. There's like Cat 2 cable in the building. So from a networking perspective, we've got some issues. Electrical has some issues. And as we have changed our world, not only in the medical side, but on the fire side, contamination has become a huge issue for our employees. How do you not bring certain things back into the office space? And that currently we don't have that in this building. And it would be probably we would need to address those issues if we were to remodel the building. In the basement, I think the police department found this initially. I'm moving on to the moisture problem in the basement. There is the walls moving up have significant water concerns. There's damage on the walls. We can see where water is literally coming up the walls from an unknown source. I think this is not new information to anybody. It's just let's wait to see what happens with it. Let's make a decision and then move forward at the time. In the pictures in there, generally on the walls, we have moisture issues. If you remember, in 2010, the building flooded when the rainstorm, I think it was 2010. So some of that was abated through some grant funding and insurance funding, I think it was. Could be related. The HVAC, on the following page, that's titled HVAC. I think there's a couple things going on. In the old HVAC system, you have significant, probably just old system that's been running forever and ever. That's probably in bad shape, plus the building, so diesel exhaust. If you're standing next to a diesel, especially older diesel trucks, if you're standing next to it when they start it, you get that big black cloud that comes out. Well, that was going on in that building since 1920, whenever they bought diesel trucks. Until 2006, when an exhaust system that's direct hooks up to the truck was installed. So I think probably in that HVAC system, there's some significant concerns regarding what's literally in the pipe and would need to be addressed. So none of them are insurmountable, I will say it that way. I think probably everyone here has been involved in some sort of remodel project. It's not insurmountable. It's what is the cost to do the work and what is the and what do you get in the back end. From a professional side, we are involved in a lot of remodel projects for buildings that we have to enforce code in. And my experience, I can't say I have a personal experience in like a home remodel or anything. My experience when I deal with those projects from a code side is that the owners always find something that's a bigger liability once they start the project. And so that's where I want to be cautious, and Zimmerman wants to be cautious on their cost estimate. They have not done, they've done an initial look for the village in 2010, I can't remember the year, and then they updated that look recently through our discussion. So I think we would need to all be mindful, no matter what happens, if we're going to remodel, that's something we have to be cautious of. The size to operate, and then the ADA issues are also out there. I guess I would leave it, and then I'm open to, I'll make one other statement on it, I'm open to questions. The